Hello. In this clip from our Justia webinar, AI and Ethics Using Artificial Intelligence Responsibly in Legal Practice, James Scotto shares his final thoughts about AI and ethics while answering related questions from the audience. If you'd like to see more Justia videos on law practice and legal marketing, be sure to subscribe to our channel.
Okay, so some key takeaways, and then I see a couple of questions in the Q&A that I'll touch on. So I should be clear from all of this. Using AI and generative AI in particular is not prohibited by any of the bar associations that I've seen, by any of their guidance. But clearly, as I touched on today, use of AI can implicate a number of ethical issues, and there may be more than we covered today, depending on what you're using and how you're using it. There are no real specific ethical rules that have been written or amendments made to specifically address AI. So most of this is looking at guidance and the couple of cases where lawyers have been sanctioned. I would kind of make yourself aware of those, some of the ones that are mentioned in the presentation earlier. And I think you should be constantly vigilant about, as you use new AI tools or consider using them, and if you use them in new ways, give thought to whether those different use cases might implicate ethical rules or might implicate a rule in a different way than things we've talked about already. Obviously, stay away from unauthorized practice of law. Make sure that if you're using AI in connection with judicial or other proceedings, that you understand if there's local rules that address AI, you obviously comply with them and adhere to the, and do the fact checking. Just like you would with any other secondary source. Make sure you supervise your employees, and really it's good practice to have policies for all of this. Okay, so there's a couple of questions here. Let me get to. The first is, given the amount of hallucination with LLMs, which stands for large language models, how useful are LLMs in the legal profession at this time? If any companies are able to certify their level of accuracy. So I think with respect to the first part of the question, there are general purpose LLMs, right? So again, without kind of going too much into naming names, the ones that you see that you use for any purpose, day-to-day purposes, those are not specifically trained on legal documents, right? They're trained on basically the internet, a lot of them. And so they don't have specialized knowledge or skill, and they're not necessarily constrained to things that we know are valid legal documents or principles. So the likelihood that they will hallucinate is greater than the tools that are custom trained on legal documentation. Having said that, both general purpose tools and even ones that are specifically trained on legal information can hallucinate. And so I think the answer is, does that mean you shouldn't use them? You shouldn't use them, or are they not useful for lawyers? And I think the answer to that is no. I think the key is understand those limitations and don't just use any output as if it's necessarily factually correct. If it identifies a case, do the primary research and make sure that case actually exists. If the AI tool summarized the case, make sure that it's summarized correctly. Do what you would do in other situations. But AI can be incredibly helpful in many contexts. So I wouldn't not use it because of that. I would adhere to the principles we talked about and use it in a way that's ethically compliant and safe. And then the second part of the question, do you know of any companies that are able to certify the level of accuracy? Again, I think through, adopting diligence. Look, we all, anytime we adopt a new technology, there's a certain level of diligence that our IT departments go through to vet the tool, whether it's AI related or not. There are some AI specific issues that you want to go through. Again, I would refer you to the NIST risk management framework that I talked about. It's pretty comprehensive, but your IT departments should be kind of aware of that and the risks that can exist, and they should be able to dig down on that. I'm not aware, I'm sure there are, but I'm not aware of any specific third-party, consultants that do this type of work, but I'm sure they're out there. And if you don't have the capability within your firm, then I would suggest seeking someone like that. Okay, next question is, can you define legal advice versus providing information? I wish I could do a better job. There are some of the cases I mentioned by state, it kind of varies as far as what's within the scope of legal advice versus providing information. But, I think as examples, without necessarily being exhaustive, if you're reaching a legal conclusion or representing somebody, preparing a document that's being submitted to a tribunal, those are more likely to be deemed legal advice. If all you're doing is saying, here are some cases that address this issue, that's going to be more informational, right? And so if it's something that someone will use to, draw legal conclusions as opposed to giving them legal conclusions, you're more likely in the category of information. But I do want to emphasize that it is fact specific and varies by state. What influence has the concurring judicial been had, or do you think will have on AI use and rules? Interesting. I have not seen any direct result, but the judicial opinion from the 11th Circuit, the concurring opinion. But I do know that courts and different organizations that deal with the National the Council of State Courts and some of the other organizations that deal with these issues are addressing AI head on, and I'm sure they'll factor that opinion into any rules that they adopt. And then the last question that's here is, are there any suggestions for guiding subject matter experts on using AI and writing their expert opinion reports, or the same guidance you offer the legal profession? I think for the most part, the same thing. Again, like if you have information, like what a lot of times, like ways that lawyers use AI or experts might use it is, you might outline a set of issues with bullet points, and you may ask AI to create a first draft based on that. So if the content is yours and you're using the AI tool really just for formatting and kind of expanding it, right? Again, you're probably going to be in a safer point. You still want to review everything that it does and make sure it's accurate, but that's one way that you can use it very easily. If you're trying to get an AI tool to develop expert opinions, that's probably a little riskier. If you're trying to get it to do a search of prior expert opinions on the same topic and summarize those, again, that's probably in the middle. Some of these tools, when they cite stuff, they'll actually provide a link to where if they found information, if they're using like retrieval augmented generation, for example, and you can go back and look at the actual document that was pulled, but it's a good way to get the information and have like a summary of it as a starting point for you to do additional research. Okay. And then, are there key ethical concerns that arise from the use of AI in legal practice? How do they differ from traditional ethical concerns? On some topics like bias and discrimination, that's something that we all need to be mindful of. Anyone using an AI tool needs to be mindful of that. It's not limited to lawyers. But I say the key distinction, relevant to this question is that lawyers are subject to higher ethical standards in many situations in dealing with clients than some companies are with their customer. And so those are the bar rules, the ethical guidelines that we deal with every day. And so I think, the applicability of those is going to be the key distinction of where those concerns arise in the legal practice, but not necessarily in some other business context.
So,
I think we got through them all.
Yeah, you did. Thank you so much, James, for that wonderful presentation and for answering all of our audience questions. And thank you all for submitting your questions. We want to thank you again for joining us for another Justia webinar. Thanks for watching. We hope you enjoyed this video. And if you did enjoy it, please click the like button and subscribe to our channel for more videos on law practice and legal marketing. See you in our next clip.